I asked for just one day off, June 14th, the day my best friend died saving my life. Every year, I lit a candle for him alone, quiet and grateful. But this year, my new boss said, "No, that's not a valid reason. Show proof or show up." I chose to keep my promise. The next morning, I was fired. But what he didn't know was that the world was about to hear our story. My name is Chuck Bradford. I'm 61 years old, and I don't talk much. People say I look like someone who's seen too much, and maybe they're right. I served in the Marine Corps for 22 years. I've done 3 tours: Iraq, Afghanistan. A few places the government won't admit we were ever in. I've lost more friends than I care to count, but one in particular never leaves my mind. Corporal Davis. We called him D. He was the kind of guy who could make you laugh, even when the world was burning. The kind of guy who always had your six until the very end. June 14th, 2007. That was the day he threw himself in front of a sniper's bullet. Meant for me. I saw him fall. I held his hand as he bled out, and the last thing he whispered was, "Don't let them forget me." Chuck, I promised I wouldn't. After I retired, I tried different jobs, some construction, some odd handyman gigs, but nothing stuck. Until I got a position as a night security guard at a mid-sized shopping mall in San Diego. It wasn't glamorous. The pay was average. But I liked the silence. I liked the routine. And most of all, I liked being invisible. The mall was mostly quiet at night. I'd do rounds, check doors, keep out the occasional teenager trying to skateboard or sneak in. I'd read a book in the break room, drink too much black coffee, and go home at dawn to my small apartment with the flag folded in the corner and a picture of D on the mantel. Every June 14th, for the past 15 years, I took the day off. No parties, no speeches. I'd visit the veterans' cemetery, stand by D's grave, and then sit on a bench for a few hours in silence. Sometimes I'd talk to him, just updates about life. Other times I'd just sit. I never missed it. Not once. The company never had a problem with it. My old boss, Marcus, even covered my shift himself the first few years. He was ex-Navy, understood the code, understood that some things aren't negotiable, but Marcus retired last spring. And in came Jason Weller, a fast-talking, rule-bound MBA type in his late 30s, slicked back hair, expensive shoes, and the kind of condescending smile you learn to ignore after basic training. From the beginning, Jason made it clear that he saw the old staff, especially the older guys, as dead weight. He called our routines outdated and inefficient. He wanted real-time monitoring, body cameras, QR check-ins. He brought in new hires barely out of college and scheduled meetings at 2 for operational alignment. He also stopped learning our names. To him, I was Night Watch 3. A week before June 14th, I submitted my time-off request, same as always. He flagged it during the next shift meeting. "Mr. Bradford, I noticed this request here for June 14th. "What's the nature of the absence?" I said plainly. "It's the anniversary of a fallen Marine. I've taken it off every year." He squinted at the paper. "Is this a legally recognized holiday?" "No." "Do you have documentation?" "A funeral notice, death certificate, something official." I stared at him, stunned. "He died in combat?" Jason shrugged. "Look, I get it. I respect the military, but we can't make exceptions for emotional anniversaries. If it's not medically necessary, or federally mandated. I can't approve it. We have a protocol. Now, I didn't argue. I simply said, then I'll be out that night. That's not changing. He smiled that smug little smile and muttered, suit yourself. I worked my shift like always. Quiet, focused, dignified. On the night of June 13th, I clocked out, nodded to the new kid on swing shift, and went home. The next day, I did what I always did, drove to the cemetery, stood at Dee's grave, and kept my promise. When I returned, the night of the 15th, there was a letter waiting for me in the guard office termination failure to comply with mandatory attendance policy. Violation of chain of command, considered abandonment of post. No meeting, no conversation. Just a signature at the bottom that said, Jason Weller, security manager. I folded the letter once and put it in my coat pocket. Didn't say a word to anyone. But that night, I did write something. That night, I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of coffee and that termination letter. I read it once more. Not because I didn't understand it, just because I couldn't believe how cold it was. No mention of my years of perfect attendance, no recognition of my service, just a technical code and a manager's signature. I wasn't angry, not yet. Mostly I felt tired. Tired of being treated like a relic, like someone disposable. But before tossing the letter aside, I pulled out an old photo from the drawer. It was the one of me and Dee, taken a week before he died. We were covered in dirt, squinting in the sun, holding up peace signs like a joke. I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened my laptop. I wasn't much of a social media guy, but I had a Facebook account, mostly to keep in touch with a few other vets. I didn't post often, maybe once or twice a year. That night, I wrote something short, just a few lines. I was fired yesterday, not for being late, not for failing my duties, but for keeping a promise. I made 15 years ago, on June 14th, 2007. My brother in arms, Corporal Davis, took a bullet for me. He died so I could come home. Every year since I've honored him on that day, quietly, respectfully. My new boss said I needed proof, that it wasn't a valid excuse. I told him the only proof I needed was the flag that covered my friend's coffin. I'd make the same choice again. Some things matter more than protocol. I hit post and closed the laptop. Didn't expect much. I figured maybe one or two of the guys from my old unit would comment. Maybe someone would share a memory of Dee. But by morning, there were over 800 likes. By lunch, 5,000 shares. By that evening, over 300,000. And it didn't stop. Veteran pages picked it up first, then a few local news outlets, then national ones. My inbox filled with messages, some from people I'd served with, some from complete strangers, Gold Star moms, active duty soldiers, kids who'd never met a vet before, saying they cried reading my post. One woman messaged me, "My son died in Afghanistan. Thank you for remembering. Thank you for standing your ground." By day 3, it had over 1 million shares. Reporters started calling. I said no to all of them until one request caught my eye: the Military Hour, a segment on the Armed Forces Network. I knew the anchor staff sergeant, Melissa Rios. She'd been embedded with our unit once in '05. She still remembered Dee. I agreed to the interview, not for attention, not for pay, just to make sure his name wasn't forgotten. We filmed in my apartment. Nothing fancy, just me, sitting on a wooden chair next to Dee's photo In the folded flag, I told the story honestly, calmly, no drama. I told them about how Dee always gave away his rations if someone else looked hungrier. How he once wrote letters for 3 different guys who couldn't read. How he once made us laugh so hard in the middle of a sandstorm, we forgot we were in hell. I told them about June 14th and what I did every year since the segment aired 2 days later. It was raw, emotional, honest, and it went viral again. But this time, something shifted. Suddenly, the mall's name started trending. People found out where I worked. Customers began posting angry comments on the mall's social pages. You fired a veteran for visiting a fallen comrade. Shame on you. One woman posted a video tearing up her store credit card on camera. It got over 2 million views. A group of local vets held a candlelight vigil outside the mall. 30 people the first night. Over 200 by the weekend. A few brought signs that said, "Honor over policy. Chuck stood up, so will we." News crews started showing up. The mall's PR team released a cold, vague statement about internal staffing decisions. But it backfired. The tone-deaf language only made people angrier. Then the numbers hit. Foot traffic dropped. 2 major tenants reportedly threatened to pull out if the PR disaster wasn't handled. And the company's stock, it fell 9% in 4 days. I wasn't looking for revenge, but karma. Well, she doesn't ask for directions. I didn't plan on becoming a symbol. Hell, I'm not even comfortable with the word hero. Dee was the hero. Not me, but somehow, overnight, I'd become the quiet face of a storm no one expected. A few days after the Military Hour segment aired, I received a letter. Not an email, an actual paper letter handwritten in blue ink. It was from a 12-year-old boy in Nebraska named Kyle. He wrote, "My dad died in Iraq. I never got to meet him. But reading what you wrote made me feel like someone still remembers. Thank you for keeping your promise." I read it twice, then folded it gently and placed it next to Dee's flag. That same day, the CEO of the company that owned the mall, a man named Leonard Dreyfus, finally made a public statement. It was corporate, scripted, hollow. We respect our veterans and appreciate their service. However, all employees are expected to follow protocol. The situation involving Mr. Bradford is being reviewed internally. Review, huh? I guess that's what they call backpedaling now. But the damage was already done. Thousands of angry comments flooded their page. Veteran advocacy groups launched petitions demanding a public apology and reinstatement. A group of retired Marines created a fundraiser, not for me, but to install a memorial bench in Dee's name in Balboa Park. People started showing up at the mall, not to shop, but to protest, peacefully, respectfully. Some dressed in uniform. Others held photos of loved ones lost in combat. One older woman, maybe 80, stood in the food court, holding a sign that said, "My son died in '67. You don't fire men like Chuck." The local news couldn't ignore it anymore. Then it hit national headlines. Veteran fired for honoring fallen comrade. Promise kept, job lost, loyalty versus policy. A nation responds. I started getting calls from people I hadn't heard from in years. Old unit buddies. My former commanding officer. Even a senator's office reached out asking if I'd be willing to speak at a Memorial Day event. I declined. I wasn't trying to campaign for anything. I just wanted to keep a promise. Then came the twist. I didn't see coming one afternoon about a week after everything blew up. A car pulled up in front of my apartment. A woman stepped out. mid-30s, professional looking but nervous. She introduced herself as Erica Davis D's niece. She said she'd grown up hearing stories about her uncle, the brave, funny, big-hearted guy who died before she was born. But for years, all she had was what the family told her. Until now, she'd seen my post, the interview, the candlelight vigil. Someone uploaded to YouTube, and for the first time, she said, Dee felt real to her. We sat on my porch and talked for nearly 2 hours. She cried, I did too. Before she left, she said, Thank you for keeping him alive in here, and she pointed to her heart. I didn't sleep much that night. Something had shifted. This wasn't just about me or Dee anymore. It had become something bigger. But while the world was embracing the story, someone wasn't happy about it. That someone was Brad Kinley. My former manager, the one who denied my time off and fired me without hesitation. Apparently, the heat was getting to him. Insiders at the mall leaked emails to a local journalist. In them, Brad had written phrases like, We need to kill this narrative fast, don't apologize, it sets a precedent. Bradford's post was manipulative and self-serving. Bad move, Brad. The journalist published an expose. The public backlash was immediate and merciless. Someone found Brad's old tweets from college. Turns out he once made a joke about dodging the draft by majoring in marketing. It didn't land well. A satirical Twitter account popped up at Protocol over people posting fake policy memos with biting humor. The hashtag had justice. For Chuck trended nationwide. Even late-night talk shows picked it up. One host joked, If Chuck Bradford had been my mall security, I'd feel safer than the Secret Service. My face was suddenly everywhere. I didn't like it, but I understood. People weren't really rallying for me. They were rallying for what I represented. Loyalty, integrity, sacrifice. 3 things that seemed in short supply these days. Then came the press conference, under pressure from shareholders, veterans groups, and an angry public. The company organized a televised apology. CEO Leonard Dreyfus stood stiffly behind a podium, reading from a prepared statement. We deeply regret the handling of Mr. Bradford's situation. We apologize for any pain caused to him and to the community. Effective immediately, we are offering him full reinstatement and an invitation to help guide our new veteran appreciation initiatives. The reporters didn't clap. They asked the real question. Will Mr. Kinley face consequences for his actions? There was a pause. Then Mr. Kinley has been placed on administrative leave, pending internal review. Translation: He's toast. 2 weeks later, he resigned. For personal reasons, I received a formal letter inviting me back to my old job with a pay raise and title promotion. I turned it down, respectfully. Instead, I took a quiet offer from the San Diego War History Museum, a part-time role as a docent sharing real-life stories of service and sacrifice. I'd spend a few afternoons a week showing school kids around the exhibits, telling them about bravery, not from books, but from memory. On my first day, a little boy, maybe 8, tugged on my sleeve. "Did you ever get scared?" he asked. I looked down, smiled gently, and said, "Sure." But what scared me most was forgetting the people who made sure I came home. He nodded like he understood something bigger than himself, and that more than anything made it all worth it. You'd think that after the apology, after the press conference, after Brad Kinley quietly resigned in shame, The story would fade. But sometimes, karma isn't just a moment. It lingers. It multiplies. It spreads like a quiet fire under dry grass. A few months after I started at the War Museum, I got a call from a local investigative reporter named Monica Reyes. She was working on a piece about corporate mistreatment of veterans, specifically in retail and security industries. She'd been digging deeper into my former employer, and what she found wasn't just a one-off mistake, it was a pattern. Turns out, Brad Kinley had been involved in multiple disciplinary dismissals of veterans who had requested time off for PTSD appointments, VA checkups, or memorial events, all under vague terms like scheduling conflict or unprofessional conduct. Worse internal memos revealed Brad once referred to veterans as drama magnets in a private Slack message. Monica showed me a copy. I read it once, closed the folder, and said, "You know what to do." 2 weeks later, her article dropped. Headline silenced by policy. The hidden bias against vets in corporate America. And right there, front and center, was a photo of me and Dee's flag. Below it, quotes from other former employees, guards, managers, even a receptionist who'd been pushed out quietly just like I had been. Brad Kinley's name was mentioned, repeatedly. The fallout was immediate. Veterans organizations rallied. Major news outlets picked it up. And then came the twist that no one saw coming. Congress got involved. A bipartisan group of lawmakers called for a federal review of how large corporations handle veterans in their workforce. They proposed a new bill. The Veteran Workplace Respect Act aimed at protecting service-related leave and punishing discriminatory policies. The company that had fired me, they weren't just dealing with PR damage now. They were facing federal scrutiny. Shareholders revolted. Several board members stepped down. Stock prices plummeted by nearly 18% in one quarter. But the twist wasn't just about the company. It was Brad himself. An anonymous source leaked footage from an internal staff meeting months prior, the one where Brad was addressing a newly hired team. In the video, he said, "Look, we're not running a charity. I don't care if someone used to be Rambo. If they can't show up, when I say they're gone, loyalty doesn't pay rent." That 14-second clip was replayed across every major network in the country. His name became synonymous with corporate arrogance and cold-blooded ambition. No company would touch him. He went from regional manager to national disgrace. 1 week later, Brad was interviewed briefly by a local station. He looked pale, exhausted. His voice cracked. "I didn't mean it like that. It was taken out of context. I've always supported our troops, but no one bought it. It was too late." The world had already judged him, and karma had already stamped the verdict. Meanwhile, life had taken a quieter, more purposeful turn for me. The museum became more than just a job. It became a mission. I started hosting monthly talks called The Promise Room, where veterans could come sit and share their stories with families, students, and each other. We lit a candle at the end of every session for someone they'd lost. People cried, people hugged, people. And slowly healing happened. One afternoon, Erica Davis Dee's niece visited again. This time, she wasn't alone. She brought her 2 kids. They stood in front of Dee's photo, now part of a permanent display, and asked questions only kids ask. Did he like pizza? Was he taller than you? Would he have liked me? I smiled. He would have thought you were the coolest kids in the world. Later that day, Erica pulled me aside. She said, "You know, I used to hate that we never had a grave to visit. But now I realize this place, this story, it is his memorial." And that right there was the true revenge. Not in headlines, not in lawsuits, but in the legacy. They tried to erase a man's sacrifice with policy, but instead, they carved his name into thousands of hearts. On June 14th, 1 year to the day since everything began, I stood on a small stage at the museum. We'd unveiled a new installation, a bronze sculpture of a soldier shielding another. No names, just a plaque that read, "For those who stood in front of the bullet." I spoke to a quiet crowd, some in uniform, some holding folded flags, some with tears in their eyes, and I ended my speech the only way I knew how. I lost a job, but I kept a promise, and if I had to do it again, I wouldn't change a damn thing. I still walk with a slight limp. My knees aren't what they used to be, but every morning when I open the museum doors, I stand a little taller. I don't wear a uniform anymore. No stripes, no rank. Just a name tag that says Chuck. Storyteller. Kids pass by. Some salute. Some ask the hardest questions in the softest voices. Did you ever get scared? Was he really your best friend? Do you miss him? I always pause. Then I tell them, yes, every day. And I smile. Not because I'm sad, but because I remember remembering is the promise. We spend so much of our lives chasing promotions, proving ourselves to people who wouldn't remember our names if we disappeared tomorrow. But honor lives in the small, quiet choices. Like showing up to a grave no one else visits. Like keeping a promise no one else remembers. I wasn't fired because I broke a rule. I was fired because I kept my word. And in the end, that word was stronger than any company policy, stronger than any bad boss, stronger than fear. Dee saved my life once, and in a way, maybe I helped his name live on. That's all I ever wanted. So if you ever wonder what integrity looks like, it's not loud. It doesn't chase applause. It just shows up every June 14th with a single rose and a heart that remembers.